Welcome in. I'm Kimberly. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Welcome to the summer series of Live with a Medium or a channel or a mystic or someone that has some really cool skills and abilities. This is what we're going to be doing on Thursday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So mark your calendars. You won't want to miss all the guests that we have lined up for the remainder of the summer. If you're enjoying this content, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you would rather listen than watch, we are now on Spotify, iTunes, and all podcast platforms. So wherever you listen to your podcast, we're there. Just type in Journey to the New Earth and we'll pop up. And then the last thing I want to say before I introduce our guest tonight is if you're interested in keeping abreast of what's happening around the planet, but it seems a little overwhelming, you might want to sign up for our Friday morning email newsletter. It's coming out tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We highlight the things that we think are important that are happening around the planet. It's good information, super free, super fun. I think you're going to love it. Super easy to sign up. You just click the link in the description box down below and it will land in your email inbox. Now we're going to get started. This series is Q&A with a channel tonight, and we are joined by the wonderful Jill Feeler. Hi, Jill. How are you?
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Well, thanks for coming back. If you missed the interview with Jill, it's listed in the description box down below. You can go ahead and catch it after this live. What we're doing tonight is we're going to be opening with a discussion on something I think is of general interest. However, we're also taking questions from you guys. So go ahead and add them to the chat. We'll try to get to all the questions this evening. I don't think anything's off the table, is it, Jill?
No, give me hard questions. Give
The
us
hard
hard
question.
questions, right? Hard questions.
Okay.
Kimberly, we can do it, right?
Well, I've got a hard question for you, but this is what I want to start with tonight. So if you've got a question, put it in the chat. We'll try to make sure that we answer all the questions this evening. We're going to go for about an hour. What I want to start with is I posted a video yesterday from a lovely woman, Nancy Rebecca, and she was recalling kind of how she started on her journey and a little way into her journey of mediumship and channeling. Her guide said to her, humanity is going to be waking up. The awakening is coming. And she's like, well, what is that? What's that about? And that's what I want to open up with is we see it, we can kind of feel it. We're all talking about it, but what does it actually mean? And then I can also tell you that for me, there seems to be just a shift in my awareness. And what I can say is that all of a sudden I'm noticing this kangaroo in my living room. The kangaroo's always been there. I never noticed it before. And now all of a sudden I'm noticing it and wanting to talk to the kangaroo. In other words, there are things that are just so apparent and obvious in my life that I never really focused on. They were there, but they didn't catch my attention or energy, and now they are. So that's what I can share. And plus my telepathy is off the charts. So why don't you kind of let us know? And Jill is a conscious channel. So this is how it's going to go this evening. She'll be talking some of it and channeling some of it. So you'll let us know.
So it's almost like the question is humanity, well, I want to rephrase it, I guess, to is humanity awakening? Because I mean, I've been doing this since around 2009, 2010. So I've been doing this long enough to be aware of some of those kind of grand expectations. And I remember trying on those expectations for myself, really almost experimenting with, is that true? Does that make sense? Is that really what I'm seeing? And of course, what we expect affects what we see, right? I don't believe it's what we create. I believe it's just what we're kind of noticing, observing, that sort of thing. So in my experience, I tried on that idea and I realized that there was a lot of contradictory evidence. And one could actually argue, and this part might be very unpopular, especially in a very positive, light-based group like this, but just hear me out because there's a benefit to it. What if parts of humanity are actually devolving, what if parts of humanity are actually getting worse? And it's not that they're going to get worse and then get better. What if they just are deteriorating? In my observing of humanity, whether it's personally or just kind of global headlines or when I'm traveling or something like that, there are definitely aspects of humans that seem to be evolving, progressing, getting better. They're healthier, they're happier, maybe they're more connected to God, which of course is a big passion point of mine. But then there's also, I would say, equal evidence that there are some humans struggling more. They feel less connected to God. They have a harder time than ever experiencing a state of joyfulness. So when I let myself consider, and this was hard, this was really hard because I am a very optimistic, glass half full kind of person. When I let myself consider that humanity is doing what it's doing, and there's more of an individual story than a collective story going on, I got closer to the messages from God that I receive because I stopped placing a specific expectation like humanity awakening. And when I did that, I felt like my messages actually got more clear, more real, more loving, and almost I don't want this to sound condescending, but it might, more emotionally mature. Some of the
Okay.
advice that I was receiving and that I felt for others felt like it was a bit more blunt and a bit more honest and not sugar coated. So I have found a closeness to God in a much better way, more personal way, by no longer expecting slash imagining slash pretending that humanity is awakening. But I recognize that that's a bitter pill to swallow for some because they want it so bad, and I understand why.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a conversation about that because I definitely can see, and it's obvious to all of us that let's talk about the US, which is where I am, where I live and you live as
Me
well.
too.
And so that's really what I can speak to is where I live. And one thing that I've talked about in other videos is there is no longer, from my perspective, a shared reality.
Mm.
In other words, when I was growing up, it seemed like we all sort of had the same perception of family unit, right and wrong, how to behave there was just a shared reality about what our existence was.
Mm.
Now, in the world that I look around me, it's like, oh my gosh, nobody agrees. People are not agreeing about how we move forward, what's healthy for society, what's healthy for a family, what's healthy with a personal position. And I see that. I see some people really reaching or desiring something more nurturing for humanity. In other words,
Mm.
what are systems that support humans more? How can we live on this planet in a way that's gentle and loving to the planet, that is good for humanity, that feels good for us, that grows, a community that really supports our creativity and our ingenuity and all that sort of stuff. And then I see there's all kinds of factions, and I see factions that kind of line up with what you say that just they don't seem to be getting happier. They're a little bit more uncomfortable. They're a little bit more dissatisfied. They're a little bit more angry. There's not that sense of joy and peacefulness around them. So I definitely can see that whole devolving thing, but I'm wondering if it isn't a result of an agenda to
Mm.
destabilize humanity, because a
Mm.
destabilized humanity is so much easier to control.
Mhm.
You're tapping in, I can see that.
Love it. I love it. This is one of my favorite topics. Um, okay, so when there are signs and clues of devolution and of individuals having seems like an overly hard time, almost to the point that one could imagine that someone's difficulty is engineered, is orchestrated, is managed, right? Like someone's detriment was planned, is designed, and is being some part of a plan that's being implemented. I got deep into those ideologies. I investigated a lot energetically with my team and their teams, right? So the soulfulness of those individuals that appear to be manipulated, even politicians, like global politicians. I was tapping in and going, okay, tell me from their higher self, which is a common term, right? I like wider self, but higher self works. From their higher self, tell me what's going on with that individual. Because what I see is nefariousness, right? And I always found benevolence as their higher self. And I was like, okay, so is there like a magic curtain here? Is there something I'm not seeing that I'm asking to be shown that may not be what I want to see? Right? Tell me, I want nothing but the truth. Source knows that about me. I literally can handle the truth, even when it's not what I want it to be. And what I realized is that there are a lot of actions and decisions and choices that we see being carried out and implemented in this reality that look like a plan of nefariousness that are actually, and this is very hard to, I was like, what? When I first felt this, is actually a thoughtful choice that is meant for good that ended up going on as not intended and ended up looking like something that was planned to be bad. So what that told me is that if we were able to sit down with somebody that we are the most concerned about, top level of society, elitists, whatever, and we said, okay, so this thing you did here, or this thing you approved there or funded there, tell me why. What were you thinking? What was going on in your mind? And if we were able to put them up to truth detectors or some truth serum or something like that, we would be shocked at how innocent and even benevolent it will look in terms of their intentions. But it doesn't look that way in terms of outcome, and it doesn't go as planned. And their vision of what is the right thing to do in a benevolent framework may be violently disagreeable to what we think is the right thing to do, right? So it's complicated. It is really complicated. So since I've had those experiences, and that was early into my giftedness, I started to feel more grace. That as humans, there's a lot of times, even in families, where something goes horribly wrong. And somebody's like, what were you thinking? And it was like, I just thought it would be nice to, let my 14-year-old, drive the car around the neighborhood a little bit. I didn't, well, they did this damage and that damage. What were you thinking? I seriously just wanted to give my kid a chance for, spreading his wings a little. I never thought anything bad would happen, right? There's so many and even thoughtlessness that goes just really bad, that when we try to assume villainous, evil intentions, there's some evil warlord kind of thing, every single time I tap into that with my giftedness, I get actually, there's another explanation for this, Jill.
Wow.
So conspiracy theories, I appreciate them. Sometimes theories are correct. It's when it is involved in a grand plan of evil that my kind of alarm bells start to go off. Oh, actually, there's probably another explanation. And there is. It's just that sometimes we're just convinced that something this bad couldn't have been initiated in a positive way. But I mean, I think even individually, sometimes if we were put in a court of law situation and prove your intentions, it's really hard to prove one's intentions. So it makes it easy for anyone that's disgruntled with this reality or their own life to imagine somebody's pulling strings in an evil way. It's easier to believe that than just that things aren't fair here. And this is a high risk environment, like we talked about last time. This is a high stakes, high risk reality. So it's almost somehow more settling to some individuals that there's someone to blame versus it's just sad when things go bad. It's sad when things go wrong. It's sad when someone gets hurt. And it doesn't have to mean anyone intended it.
Yeah. So let's address this question from Isabel. Aren't
Okay.
we part of one tapestry?
Oh, I love that one too. Okay, so that's the whole "we are all one," right? Mantra and kind of ideology. Okay, so at a source level, we are a part, we are one, if you will, as source energy. And in this reality, we have the supreme gifted opportunity to be almost fully individualized. So to say we are all one and apply that to humanity or to this earthly reality, I find to be highly problematic. And here's a couple examples. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. Well, we're all one, we're all part of one tapestry. So they cut me off, so I must have cut myself off. You didn't do anything. You never cut people off. If you cut somebody off, it's because an emergency vehicle is coming and you had to make that choice, right? Somebody is stealing. Oh, well, we're all part of the same thing. So they must be a mirror to me, and there must be a part of me that's a thief too, because I saw it. So that's me. No, that's not true. So a thief is a thief, and you observing the thief is you observing the thief. You get to be your individualized self, and they get to be their individualized self. And as source energy, we are only responsible for our individual one, not others' ones.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm happy about that personally. I don't want to be held responsible for all the thieves and all the, crookery and scams and all that stuff. But I will definitely take full accountability for myself,
Yeah.
and
For
know
my
my
only,
intentions and all those things. That's enough.
yeah. So when I look around, this perception I find fascinating, and I think I kind of believe it, Jill, is that if I am looking at another person, I'm literally looking at another version of myself or another version of my energy. And that version is doing this and that and the other thing. So I can see the beauty in that we all incarnate into this reality system to do what we're going to do. And high risk environment, that sort of thing, we all bounce around off each other and we learn a whole ton. So I can see that. But let's go back. I want to go back to is there nefariousness on this planet? And let's bring up the law of one, the law of one. So the only difference between good and evil is service to self or service to others. And service to self, in other words, the decisions I make and the choices I make are only going to serve me. I don't care about the collective. Whereas good or the enlightened is service to others. In other words, I take care of myself first. I make sure that I'm good, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm centered. And my choices need to include what's going to work for the greater good. In other words, my community, my family, that sort of thing. So if I look at, let's use politics because it's such a hot button. Everybody's probably a little bit aware of politics right now. I believe I see people who are in positions of authority that we have placed in positions of authority to work for our greater good that are making decisions based on what's good for them, whether it's kickbacks or it's privileges or it's generally always comes down to money. So I see people that I think are literally making decisions based on what's in it for them instead of what's in it for the greater good.
Do you feel that way about your personal politicians? That you have more that represent you more directly?
I think that there is such a potential in the system we have set up for what I would call corruption. In other words, for good and for people who go in thinking they're gonna do good, to
Hmm.
get lured down a path, either through money or blackmail or threats or this and that, to do things that ultimately are not in service to their constituents. I think the system is very vulnerable.
Hmm. These are nice, challenging, big problems that we all face. So I appreciate them. I'm gonna let what I call my team, my whitest self, answer this one.
Mhm.
um, because it is such a you characterized it so beautifully, Kimberly, and I we deserve a solid answer. Might not be a solution, I'll warn
Uh,
you, but at least it's an explanation that can help center us. Okay. Hmm. The corruptibility of humanity in multiple ways, whether that's monetarily, whether that's positions of power, whether that's authority that's thrust upon an individual or sought by an individual, has been there throughout humanity, is definitely a part of the timeline that you all are in, and we see it going forward as well. Mm. So it concerns us and it matters, but it also doesn't have to be getting in the human's way as much as one would think. And that to us is encouraging. It's a testament to the individualized opportunity that every human has, that even when it seems like everything is stacked against a human to live a good life and be joyful and be light filled more than even light based, even that corruption at other levels of society does not get in your way from being your light, does not get in the way from being your joy, does not get in the way of your interests, whether that is inclusive of self or even exclusive of self. So that's a testament, and we love that part, the divinity, the sacredness of humanity. It gets complicated, and we want to see. Yeah, I'm curious how they're going to do this. They're asking me to go deeper on this part. We're asking you to be cognizant of the fact that those are impossible positions. The level of corruption in the accounting of those individuals is also very true. So even if one of you were somehow in maybe a royal bloodline where you had everything you needed for learning how to be a very heart-based leader, very consciously, aware and connected, maybe even godly, right, in many aspects of yourself, even if you did the very best job you could with nothing but positive intentions, some of your decisions will be portrayed as, oh, they've clearly been corrupted. They've clearly, lost touch with the rest of us, with the commoners. There have been some beautifully benevolent leaders, past, present, and future, that have been highly misunderstood, highly mischaracterized, and ended up very miserable because all they were trying to do was make a positive difference and be of service in the best way they could in what is often a very broken system. Sometimes they were betrayed. Sometimes they were lied to. Sometimes they were told, yes, we will back you up if you make this very difficult decision to reallocate funding or something like that, because the data shows that it will have this positive impact. And then it fails miserably and they're blamed and called corrupt when, again, everything they were told was a certain thing. Everything their key trusted advisors may have been wrong and may have been intentionally misleading of them. So it's very understandable to characterize, with a very broad brush, that all leaders have become corrupted by money. But some of you on this call right here have been in positions of extreme money and you were not corrupted by it. Some
Okay.
of you have been corrupted with no money, right? In various lifetimes. So the problem isn't the money and the problem isn't the power. In many ways, the problem is the system. And we're asking you to assess individuals individually, which is almost impossible if you don't know them, if you don't know their heart, and if you don't know their intentions.
Okay. Stick with me,
So
guides. I want to go down the road
they're
on
like,
this.
they're like, we're right here. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like the system we have on planet Earth is very fragile in that it is corruptible. This is where I want to go, is there are other reality systems that work beautifully. They're supportive. There's not a control-based system. In other words, when help is needed, the person that's most qualified steps forward, and when their part is done, they step back. And then the next person comes forward when the next challenge comes up. In other words, this has been solved based on my perception in other reality systems. What's going on Earth that we can't seem to figure this out? And this has not been going on for 100 years or 500. It's been going on for hundreds of thousands of years in
This
different
is this
civilizations.
is this has it's I mean, across timelines, this is at least a pocket of every aspect of this reality that you guys are a part of. So it's a fair question, but it's also almost like asking, I came to Alaska in February. I don't understand why it's not warm. It's warm right now in Mexico. What's the problem? Get your act together, weather. Gaia, come on. There are factors about this reality that we were warned about, that we did know about. So it's not that they're not worthy of complaining and worthy of righteous anger. It's that to expect it to be solved is probably not a good idea. It's probably going to lead to disappointment. To try to incent the right behavior is valid. To try to seek improvement is valid. Different societies, different communities, different countries have their own version of like, yeah, it's a little bit better here in this way, but yeah, we've got this problem too, right? So there is no solved kind of situation, but there are different individuals would be better suited to different country governmental sorts of systems. Yeah, I'm just laughing because my husband and I were in the United Arab Emirates and Kenya and Tanzania, like within the last 7 months. And it was fascinating to meet people, and polygamy is still a way of life for some of them, even Kenya and Tanzania, or Tanzania, as they say. But the UAE, I mean, economically is so different. If you are an actual born Emirati, but you can't become an Emirati, you could work there 10 years, you can't get citizenship. You will always be a visitor. It's fascinating. So the more I travel, the more I realize just how different it is. I love America in a lot of ways. And of course, there's a lot to dislike about America. But when you talk to people about our upward mobility in some ways, they don't have that. It doesn't matter how hard they work. In a caste society, you don't go to college. You don't go to college at all, let alone go to college and become a medical doctor or get your MBA or get a good job in banking or become a successful realtor. There isn't. That's it. You are what you are, and make the best of it. Don't complain. Quit your bitching. This is it. You know what I mean? You don't even think about it. So it's a different expectation. I wouldn't want that. And I do believe we pick the country. I believe we pick our location in terms of birth, our date of birth. I believe we pick our parents, or at least one of them. And I believe we pick our first name. I know there's debate about that one, but I believe that too, because they all have a structure for us to have a certain experience, that kind of a starting point with. Anyway, I probably diverged from your question.
No,
Kimberly.
that was good. So is your team saying that this, what we perceive is to be a very fallible system on the US, and we're focusing on the government in the US right now, and I'm sure a lot of governments are very similar, some are different. Are you guys saying that this is just what is on Earth and it's never going to get better? So we might as well just chill out and have an ice cream cone or something?
That's maybe a bit more pessimistic. It can get better, it could get better, but to expect that it's not supposed to be this way is making a lot of you feel less connected to the light you are. And it's also making some of you feel less connected to the light that others are. And that's a concern to us, right? So this othering, right? Well, all leaders are, everybody with money is, everybody that has power is, right? That's othering, and it's not helpful to the light that you are, right? And it's fascinating that this topic came up right when we were talking about that as source, you are all one. So at first there was the not fighting for that, but there's a, but weren't we all one? And then there's the, except those politicians, except those American politicians, you know what I mean? So it is interesting how we can slide into a diminishment of someone else's light. And we're not saying that with judgment. We're just wanting to point it out to you, because to anyone that's feeling that, because it is so understandable why that happens, but it's almost like it doesn't matter, because they are what they are. Their higher self, again, I prefer team, because I don't believe it's higher. It's just wider. It's a wider range of them, and we're like a microscopic kind of range of ourselves typically in this reality. That wider range of them is not waggling their finger. They're human. They're applying grace and going, oh yeah, you probably made a mistake there. That was a bad choice. What were you thinking? Even our source energy can say that about ourselves. But again, in so many, and I do want to talk about actual darkness, actual evil, if you're okay with that.
Oh yeah, bring it.
We're on the topic. You subtly introduced it. I'm just going to go there. This part of this individualism in this reality, and part of the way that this reality is structured, allows for humans, and really a lot of aspects of physicality, incarnation, not just human, to act as if they have no light within them. And lack of light looks like darkness. So in many religious institutions and theology, they call that evil, they call that Satan, they call that, the devil. They have names for it. They've personified a lack of light. So if you have a room in your house and it's dark at night and there's no lights on, you don't think of the darkness as a force of darkness. What it really is a lack of light. The lights just haven't been switched on, or the sun just isn't on your side of it. Your side of the planet just isn't facing the sun. So when we started to show Jill that aspect of lack of light, that when any being is acting, I just felt that. Slow down, Jill. Okay. Is acting in a way where they are evidencing their lack of connecting, their disconnection with the light they are, it can look very, very dark. It can look very, very benevolent, and it can, or excuse me, malevolent. It can even act very like, I want to hurt you. I have every intention of harming you right now. That's not the light-based energy that they are, clearly, right? There isn't even like a godly lesson in there. It's just messed up. It's a distortion of them. And they are acting in a way that's out of accordance with their godliness. That is a very real part of this reality. And that has a wide spectrum to it, from the most dark serial killer ickiness to an addict that's under the spell of the addiction that they're facing. Even a sweet soccer mom that is missed lunch today and is acting way hangry, right, can have a dark moment, let's just say, of not acting like themselves. Hormones, right? Teenage hormones, pre and post and mid perimenopausal hormones. Obviously, male hormones cycles and lack of testosterone or too much testosterone, a whole bunch of things can make us physiologically more susceptible to that lack of light energy, where we are not, it's almost like we're not in the driver's seat of ourselves. It's almost like the good layers of ourselves, which we all have, is in the background feeling like something else has taken over, and it's terrifying. So does that happen in this reality? Oh yeah. Oh, 100%, right? And it can happen to anybody. And some humans can act that way a lot of the time, right? And that can be mental illness, it can be a lot of, it can be addiction, can be a whole bunch of things that require and deserve attention. And for other individuals, it could just be, a cycle of their life. It could be hormonal or something like that. But to give ourselves that grace, if we didn't act like ourselves, if whatever, we said things harshly to a loved one or to a stranger or whatever, that we have the presence to snap to and come right to the front of ourselves and go, I don't know what I was thinking when I just said that to you. That is not what I meant. I love you. I'm so sorry I said that. We have to take responsibility to those moments when we are acting in a way that is like lack of light. And again, there's a wide spectrum from very innocent, just kind of like knock it off. Sorry, honey, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean to say knock it off. Would you please stop tapping your foot because it's driving me crazy right now? You know what I mean? There's innocent kind of silly kind of ways and really, really heavy kind of ways.
Okay.
Driving 80 miles per hour in a 25 school zone because you're just having a bad day. That's
Yeah.
unacceptable. Yeah.
But why does that happen on Earth? I don't think that
Mm.
happens in more advanced civilizations. I think there's
Oh, I
there's
love
much
that you
more of
just said
a
that. Yeah.
there's much
This
more
is,
of a concern for
yeah.
it's just a
Mm.
gentler behavior. My perception
Yeah.
is of some a more advanced civilizations. And I don't wanna
Okay.
say advanced like they're better, they're just in a different frequency.
Kimberly, this is a highly advanced civilization.
It doesn't feel like it.
Highly. I know. I know. We get it. Um, this is a highly advanced civilization. It's just that the spectrum of being able to operate in your light and being able, the ability, the capacity, the opportunity to operate in a lack of light state is so, that spectrum is so wide and it's right next to each other.
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
so it's complicated, it doesn't make sense, but the problem with the other hypothesis of it must be because we're not as advanced, it must be because we're regressed somehow, but there's other civilizations where this doesn't happen. The challenge with that, the problematic side of that hypothesis is that there is a limit that many feel to the light that they have individually, because again, they're almost overly connected to what they see in the world. So if they see someone stealing, if they see someone acting in just a horrible way, they take that as evidence of, oh, this whole place is diminished. I'm in a reality where the capacity for light-based energy is low, and that's not true. None of you are limited in your ability to act in the most advanced, the most evolved way. It's just that if you're using other humans or other life, life containers to be a reflection of you, you're going to run into constant reminders of how unevolved your society must be. So we're offering you a completely different explanation of where you are and who you're among.
Well, so that would almost lead me to think that Earth is a master class in developing your frequency and sticking with your frequency. In other words, if I am no longer affected by what I would perceive as to be less than loving behavior, if it does not even throw me off kilter even a little bit, then I have succeeded in staying in my vibration, in my frequency. So because we have such a wide range on this planet, that tells me this is quite the education to be able to stay there when you're faced with something that's so not that.
This reality can definitely be used in the way that you're describing. And using this reality as you've described it as a masterclass, what it ends up being for most of us is the ultimate lesson in humility. And we're going to tell you why. You can you can craft the most advanced human that you can possibly come up with. You can pick the most vibrationally attuned parents. You can pick the most perfect timeline to be born into, the most amazing location where your basic needs will be taken care of, et cetera, where you don't have to worry about certain things. Maybe it's a royal family. Maybe you pick royalty. Anyway, and then you have wiring of let's just say majesty, even gloriousness. For one of us that's part of this message right here, I ended up getting beat up on the playground almost every single day because I took myself so seriously and I literally strutted around like a peacock in many ways. I didn't think I was better than others, but I wired myself in such a way to take my light so seriously that I ended up being a target for everyone that had that kind of like, oh, let me knock you down a couple pegs. I don't like peacock energy. I prefer you to be submissive to me. I had my lunch money stolen. I had constantly being knocked back. And in that lifetime, I am ashamed to say I committed suicide at the age of 15. And I did not feel masterful hardly any day of my life. And when I passed and I was shown my original blueprint that was me, I had written that blueprint. I was asked, would you do it again? And what I realized was, this is not a great reality to experience your mastery. It's also not a great reality to practice your mastery. And what I also remembered is that I don't need to be reminded of my mastery. Your mastery as your soulfulness was never in question. You don't start as a non-master and then work towards a master. You are inherently masterful. And you are inherently and infinitely able to experience new things and consider new things and create new realities and create new yous. So the reality of which we speak, humanity and Earth, is, as we said before, a very high risk, very high stakes reality where there are different versions of it, but most of us that want to hone our mastery or test our mastery, this reality is a lesson in humility. Starving to death because you don't have enough food. Epidemics or pretend epidemics where you're feeling forced and manipulated into choices you don't want to make. It's very difficult to feel masterful in that situation, even when you feel like you do have the facts, and sometimes you do and sometimes you don't.
But it does, and I can tell you what the pandemic did for me is, and I noticed it very clearly, it solidified my belief in self.
Yes,
In
there you go.
such a tremendous way. And
Mhm.
it also it it moved that muscle enough that it created in me a real comfort level in saying, "Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. No,
Mhm.
that's not for me. I'm gonna do this over there." So,
Mhm.
huge huge lesson on a soul level. It's like I'm gonna stay in what feels right for me. So, are you saying, and I'm talking to the guides now, are you saying that, I wanna tie it all up into a neat little package, our experience here on Earth, and maybe we just can't do it. Maybe you just sort of jump into this reality and learn a whole bunch of stuff that may or may not be connected, find out more about your strengths and your weaknesses and how to manage different challenges, and then you cycle on back out and do something else. But I wanna make it into this something that's gonna have this little name to it, be all boxed up
Mhm.
in a little package with a bow on it, and maybe that's just not what happens.
Mm. Well, you definitely, and that is consistent with this beautiful community. It's almost like it seems like you want it to be about learning. You want it to be about lessons. And
I
that's
think that's
probably
just me. I
because
think yeah, I think that's just me. I just am always wanting to learn something, so maybe that's just
yeah.
my own personal perception, but
Okay.
it certainly does look like a school to me, or a real opportunity to learn a whole bunch of stuff.
To us, we will respectfully offer that your soulfulness did not need to learn a lesson about you thinking for yourself and about you advocating for you and wanting to advocate for others to be their sovereignty. We would actually offer you a twist that that wasn't about a lesson or learning, that was about you embodying the godliness of thinking for yourself and having the opportunity to think for yourself. So you didn't learn that in your reality. In our experience, you offered that to your reality. So
Oh.
you stepped into a true nature that you have. And since you are, for various reasons, a voice to consider for others, you did that on behalf of many that were wanting to whisper to their own hearts what felt right or what didn't feel right to them. You gave people permission to disagree with what was offered to you as the most expert authoritarian on something that humanity and these generations had not experienced before,
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. That
right? So
that really
you
does kind
brought
of
it in and you lived it. Yeah.
mhm.
It's a
So,
very different interpretation, right?
it is a very different interpretation. So, is this is this reality system Earth just this perpetual, in other words, this is just all it's ever going to be? Is this
Mm,
constant, oh, I don't wanna it's there's a lot of conflict on this planet.
mm.
There's a
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, there's incredible beauty. I am so in love with
Mhm.
planet Earth. It's It's stunningly beautiful. It is
Yes, it is.
stunningly beautiful and diverse. I mean, we
Yes.
have so much of everything here, but it's a challenging, like you guys have said in the past, it's a challenging high risk environment. So is this, but I'm always fixing, building, making, changing, da da da
Mhm.
da da da. So I wanna make it better, but maybe I just need
Yeah.
to stop that and just like, "Well, this is what it is."
You I love how your team
I
is
mean,
jumping
but
right in
and
here. I love
I'm sure it's not
yeah.
just me. I'm sure there's people that are
No, yeah,
watching, they're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Yeah, I wanna
That's
make it
exactly
better
right.
too."
These communities tend to be the let's make it better,
Yeah.
types of folks. And which is beautiful. You couldn't stop trying to make it better even if you wanted to. Okay. It's how you are. It's how literally you are, Kimberly. It's how Jill is. It's how many individuals that tend to be involved in conversations like this tend to be. The risk is when you try to set that same expectation that that's what everyone else is doing when you have so much evidence to the contrary. People that thoughtlessly litter out their window. There's nothing in them in that moment, and maybe many moments in their humanness, where they're thinking about making things better for other people. They are so careless and so thoughtless, right? And they're not intentionally littering to make anyone else's life miserable. They're just thoughtless. They're not acting in a state of thinking about what they're doing for various reasons, right? We know it sounds uninspired, but we want this to be potentially the most inspiring thing we say today. The more you, oh, that's hard to say that word, you guys. Let's just, and they're saying, let's just try it out, Jill. Okay, the more anyone clings to, and I'm kind of cringing at that word, but I see where they're going. The more anyone clings to a storyline that humanity is going in any certain direction, they are missing the opportunity that Earth and humanity can include lessons, but don't have to include any lessons, and are 100% about experiences, not lessons, opportunities, not learning. There
Yeah.
can be as much regression as there can be progression. So giving your reality that true nature to be a part of your observation will literally liberate you to be the light you are. So when there is this conversation about, I got a message and humanity's awakening, where are you looking? At humanity. How is one human able to even see what humanity is or isn't doing? So there's a lot of pieces and parts of information, and they're put within this lens. Jesus in his journey was not expecting an awakening, and it served him well. The idea that his journey was then made into a story of the second coming and a resurrection and humanity, coming back to life and that sort of thing, is, it's not comical, it's not laughable, but it is fiction. It's fiction. Because it's a good story. It's a really good story. So just notice layers of you that want that to be true, and then also be curious about layers of you that do not need that to be true for you to be the light you are.
Okay, last question. This is important, you guys. Are there reality systems that are peaceful and fun and creative and loving and pretty and not so high risk? Please tell me there is.
Peaceful and loving and joyful and light-based. When we look at every single one of you listening or watching this, those of you that are live, and every single being that will ever experience this in archive, we would say that what you just described is actually true in many facets of your individual journey. The fact that that's going along, that that's taking place, that that's part of your personal reality alongside war, alongside grief, alongside loss, alongside sometimes financial challenges, alongside sometimes health challenges, and being deeply concerned about someone you love, is a testament to all of those godly qualities that you are wanting to be true in not just another reality. We're asking you to be more open to it as your reality.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I want to add one other part of that, and Mary Magdalene wants to say this part, and she's so good at this. Those aren't things that you came to expect in your reality. Those are things that you brought with you into your reality. You brought an embodiment of peace. You brought an embodiment of love. You brought an embodiment of joy. You brought an embodiment of light. You brought that with you so that you would never miss it. And you want that for everybody. And that's the hardest part of being in human form. Because it doesn't make sense why everybody doesn't seem to have it. Why do you have it? Why don't they? Or do they have it, but they're not connecting to it? Are they like the room in that house that the light switch isn't turned on and only they have access to the switch? It's a very complicated reality, and we're sorry that it's that way. It's hard to make sense of it. Even with all of your beautiful, empowered, masterful brains, it's almost like even if there is a logical answer, it may not be an answer that you want because you want so much all of those godly attributes to be fully accessible to everybody. What I can promise you is that even when they actually are fully accessible by everyone in your reality, they are not chosen. And that is the biggest mystery of humanity.
Yeah. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Mary always nails it. Thank you,
Yeah,
sister.
goosebumps. Goosebumps.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, this has been quite the conversation, Jill. Do you remember most of it, or
Sometimes I need to re-listen to it. I
yeah?
listened earlier today after a dentist appointment to our first call. I hadn't listened to it again. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. We did talk about that. And sometimes I'm listening to it as if I wasn't there and as if I wasn't the one who said
It's
it.
like, oh wait, that's
So,
me.
so I am conscious as I'm channeling, as you said, and yet it's from such a wide range of me that there's another kind of range of my Jill that is sort of feeling like she's getting out of the way of what's
Mhm.
coming through. So there's many private sessions, there's many messages, I mean, there's many courses even that I've taught. I know I was there and I know I was a part of it, but when I listen to it again, I'm like, oh, that was so good because I know it was more than my human Jill, right? So there's just like, wow, that, like even Mary just saying like, Mary, that was good. And she's looking at me like, Jill, you're a part of that. I'm like, I didn't feel like it. I didn't rehearse it. I didn't know what you were going to say, right? So
Yeah.
I feel just, neutral and just grateful for for what comes through.
Yeah. It was beautiful. The Mary Magdalene I was tearing up over that. That was
So good. Oh, she's
what a
so good.
wonderful little gift that we got at the end
She's
there.
so centering, right? And I just want to say thank you so much because every question that you raised, or if the audience raised it, I'm not, I don't know. But those are the hardest questions. So I'm so grateful that we had the opportunity to at least attempt to give and sometimes it is a redirect, and I'm totally honest about that. But sometimes it's even the question is like, but the question isn't fair. The question has an angle to it that won't get us to a deeper truth and
Mhm.
a clearer awareness of kind of our view of what's really going on.
Mhm.
So I try to be as delicate and diplomatic in a way that sometimes the way that my team has shared it with me and that operates so well for me, that may not work for everybody else. To some individuals, they cling literally to the idea that humanity's awakening because they can't accept any other, like I would like some individuals on this call are probably thinking I would never have come to earth if it weren't awakening. I have a completely different opinion, but it doesn't matter because it's just
Mhm.
mine. I'd love to offer it to them because I feel like it would be way more liberating, that was funny, way more liberating, way more empowering, and far more connected to the light they are versus what's happening globally. Jesus was not bothered by that. And many of us, as our soulfulness and very masterfully looking incarnations, we're not as consumed in a way by what humanity is or isn't doing. But I'm concerned that in this timeline, so many light-based beings keep getting pulled into that narrative, and I find it a huge disadvantage. And it's not necessary to be the light you are, but I get it. It's because we care. That's why we do it.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
when there are that we care. Here on this
Yes.
planet, we do
Yeah,
care.
we care.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jill,
Mhm.
share with us, do you do private sessions? What's going on with you? Where do we find you?
Yeah, so my website is jillreneefeeler.com, Jill. Renee is the French spelling, Renee, and then feeler is exactly like it sounds. Feelings, feeler, F as in Frank, Eeler. I do
Okay, and
private sessions. I love private sessions. I have a limited calendar, but I do private sessions. I do coursework, I do membership, I do trips, I have books on Amazon. I overcreate. I think I used that term last time. I create a lot because there's so many things I'm passionate about offering as another menu item within spirituality.
yeah, yeah. So I know that you did a trip to Egypt. I'm feeling like I'm going to be going to Egypt soon because I'm
Oh.
just so it's like on my radar. And you know that thing where something comes up and you go, "Oh, I guess that's where I'm going," you know?
I do know that feeling. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I'd love you to I please consider one of my trips. I don't have one on the calendar yet, especially for Egypt, but that will be my fourth time when I go back. And
Mhm.
especially now that it's my fourth time, oh, I feel so um in a good rhythm of what makes a great trip there. My first trip, I did not realize all the different kind of tricks of getting kind of backstage passes, if you will, into some of the
Mhm.
best places. I didn't know the best places. So on the second trip, I was like, oh, okay. So I have a great system now of just creating an incredible VIP experience. I only do small group travel. And it is just, yeah, really good. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Mountaintop experiences, I'm sure. Yeah. This was so
Amazing
fun.
experiences.
This was
Yeah,
so fun.
thank
I
you.
love doing this. I hope we
Absolutely.
can do this again sometime. I'm gonna be doing this through the summer, you guys. Thursday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're gonna be doing interviews with mediums and channels, mystics. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Summertime fun. Thanks so much, Jill. It was a wonderful
Thank you, Kimberly.
hour.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks for showing up, everyone. Bye now.